So I just got back from the Sundance Film Festival in Park City, Utah, and I learned a lot. I went to a bunch of panels and industry labs, and I had dozens of conversations about impact documentary filmmaking. And I wanted to share what I learned from basically the top producers, directors, and industry people. There's a lot of interesting information being tossed out there, and I think this video is probably going to be worth listening to. So here's the deal. I'm going to break it down. It's not in order or anything like that, but it's the fast facts from my notes. All right. Throughout the entire festival, I spent a ton of time in the Impact Lounge. This is a gathering of sign up that you sign up for, and you get a badge, and every day they have a panel about every aspect of filmmaking with a lot of documentary discussions. The panels are all very qualified people, and they break down how different things in the industry are evolving. So, what's working, what's not, and most importantly, what the future kind of is going to look like. All right, so let's just jump into it. First, the theme was really clear that movies are doing more than just entertaining audiences. They're becoming a spark that ignites change. Brands of all sizes are pouring out real money into filmmaking. And here's the kicker. 75% of that funding is going towards impact films. The demand for social-driven stories is here. This is good news for impact filmmakers. At least I think so. All right, but here's the thing. The industry is shifting fast, and the shift is moving away from traditional distribution channels as the only way to get your movie in front of audiences. It's also becoming harder for a lot of filmmakers who don't know how to take their films directly to audiences or understand how to use platforms that are available to do this. It's becoming essential with each project to be innovative and to take chances and to remember that theaters and Netflix are not the only way to build a career or, distribute your film, especially with impact documentary films. So here's a few facts that go along with all this. The odds of getting into Sundance are slimmer than ever. For most doc filmmakers, we put years into making our films, and it's probably not a good idea to just bet the odds on getting into Sundance or one of the big fine film festivals, with hopes of getting your film picked up by a distributor. There are 12 to 15,000 submissions each year, and they only accept about 100 films. Then when you get in, you have to stand out among those 100, which is even, tougher. So it takes a film festival strategy. So here's the thing that might be controversial, but for me, I think if you have a good film that might make it into Sundance, it's worth submitting. I think everybody should do it. You never know if you don't try. All right, now let's talk about indie film production. This has dropped at a staggering 50% in the last 5 years. This raises an important question. Where can independent storytellers turn to get their films seen? Streaming services were once a haven for documentaries, but now they're barely buying them. And in the major buyers, they were saying that they're not really looking for indie docs at all, outside of murder series or reality shows. They were pretty blunt about it. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But that's what the panelists were saying, that were kind of deep in that market. But here's the irony to all that. Experts were saying audiences are still craving documentaries more than ever, and especially impact docs. The numbers prove it. 30 million people are actively watching docs, and 75 million people have said that they want to find these docs, but they just can't find what they're looking for. So if the demand is there, why is the industry making it harder to access these films? Well, it seems that this is by design. The major buyers are using their leverage and the algorithm to secure the venues and buying choices of audiences in mainstream venues, because that's where the money is. So basically, it's up to us to think outside the box office. I don't think it's a us versus them. It's just they're protecting their investment, and they're using the venues that they know can draw the most dollars for their investment. All right, let's keep moving. I heard it 100 times. We need to rethink our approach. The game is changing, and it's all about getting specific. The phrase, the riches are in the niches, I heard that 100 times while I was there, and I think it's more true than ever. Audiences want documentaries that speak directly to their interest. And younger viewers, statistically, they were saying, especially the under 25 generation, are hungry for knowledge, and they're learning through entertainment, and they're getting educated through documentaries. So that's good news. The next big topic was pretty interesting. What is a filmmaker in today's world? The definition of filmmaker is evolving. Filmmaker and content creator, they used to be separate worlds, but that line is blurring fast. Today's creators want to see their content on the big screen, and filmmakers are embracing new platforms. The industry is resisting this shift a little bit. However, they're starting to embrace it because the demand for authentic stories is only growing, and audiences are watching content from creators as much or even more outside of movies. They're watching on platforms like YouTube. They say 47% of YouTube content is actually viewed on television screens, not just phones. All right, let's keep going. There was a ton of conversations about the oversaturation of content and how trust is more valuable than ever. People want to learn from people that they trust and feel connected to. So in the past, films were passive experiences, but social content is interactive, and audiences want to be part of these experiences. They have questions and they want to comment and things like that. So the question is, for impact filmmakers, how can you turn your audience into a participant, then have your content connect with them rather than them just being viewers? The most successful impact films will be the ones that build strong engaged communities, and they actually create and foster lasting conversations. All right, this is a lot, isn't it? All right, so let's keep going. All right, next was conversations about platforms. All right, digital platforms are opening new doors while at the same time, the theater industry is facing serious challenges. All right, check this out. Theaters are running at 11% capacity, and 80% of the content they show comes from 5 major studios. All right, the thing is in the past, independent films were a staple in cinema, but they're getting kind of pushed out because, basically 40% of that has disappeared after COVID. All right, but here's the thing. Yet all this is happening, movies and independent documentaries, there's still a demand. So there's a bunch of people trying to figure out the theater and distribution and streaming and all that stuff. But that's way out of my league. I just thought it was interesting to watch these people kind of process these big pieces of information in corporate entities. But what it showed me is that the real niche is being able to go direct to audience, which we'll get here in a minute. Okay. All right. But I do want to say 11%, that means if there's 100 seats, 11 seats are filled. It's pretty clear that something has to change. Okay. Now let's talk about YouTube. This platform is becoming a major player for audiences. It has become one of the most powerful distribution platforms for films. If filmmakers want to stay ahead, they were saying you can't really dismiss YouTube anymore. It's, you have to start leveraging it as a serious tool for not only storytelling, but outreach and audience building. The important thing to remember is that you want to think about monetizing if you're really thinking about monetizing your film, you have to think of ways that you're moving your audience from YouTube into email lists, through newsletters and other things. You have to have a personal engagement. All right, next was funding. Big foundations that fund a lot of impact and documentary films are realizing that funding a film isn't enough. Foundations are realizing that they need to support filmmakers by covering essential production costs and outreach efforts and festival runs and marketing expenses. This is great news for you and I. Here's the other thing. Most impact films that are actually being effective don't work as standalone projects. They expand into podcasts, social media, and transmedia storytelling to maximize their reach. So you're thinking of an ecosystem of storytelling, not just your film. All right, this shift highlights the importance of thinking beyond just your film, but embracing an ecosystem to reach your audience. All right, now let's talk about ownership. This is another hot topic. Independent filmmakers are taking charge of their own success. The future of independent documentaries is direct to audience distribution. They're no longer calling it self-distribution. And it's happening now in a big way, which we had played in this world, but we're starting to see, being there, you could see it firsthand that it's a really big deal. More and more filmmakers are taking matters into their own hands and taking their films to people who want to screen them. And they're making sure that their films have some type of sustainable financial outcome, and they own their own content. This doesn't mean that every film should go one way or the other, but it's important to know that self-distribution, I still mess it up, that take direct to audience distribution is actually a way that you can serve your project. All right, now let's talk about strategy. For those, and this is just stuff I was picking up, that if you've made it this far and you're listening in the background, maybe there's something in here that's hitting. All right, for those who are looking to create real change, strategy must come first. If you're making an impact film, you can't wait until the end of your film to figure out how you're going to create change. The most successful projects that people are talking about are being designed for impact. The strategy is being built way before you even start shooting your film. Building this foundation early can mean the difference between your film fading away or it actually leaving a lasting impression. All right, next was collaboration. I thought this was really cool. This is proving to be a major key to success. Competition is becoming outdated. The new approach is collaboration. Partnering with like-minded filmmakers and storytelling is really beneficial. It's quite frankly essential. Films move at the speed of trust, and working together strengthens the entire movement. By supporting each other, filmmakers can amplify their reach and actually amplify their impact. Next was the importance of knowing the basics of business and impact filmmaking. Filmmaking is a passion, but it's also a business. If you only see it as an art, making it a full-time career is nearly impossible. Filmmakers need to understand that we are in the entertainment business, according to these three execs, and it's becoming essential that you need to learn producing, marketing, and distribution basics. A lot of this is stuff that was really confirming for a lot of stuff that we believe. So now let's talk about distribution. This was a hot topic. If you want funding for distribution or for your project, clarity is everything. When funders evaluate projects, they were also saying they're asking key questions. Why this film, why you, and who is it for? If you don't have clear answers, your project might be a hard sell, and then it's also tough to get distributed is what they're saying. Is you got to know these things on the front end that will help them clarify distribution. All right, understanding these questions early on can save, you and I film, our films with a ton of frustration, which you guys know about. And I've had plenty of experience with that. All of that stuff came from a bunch of producers from Nat Geo who funded quite a few projects last year. All right, let's jump into funding again. The way films are getting funded is evolving. Angel Studios, who puts out the Jesus Project and things like that, they're shaking things up in their system. They've created a new model called the Guild. And here's how it works. 700,000 people pay to be part of it. And these people essentially vote on which films actually get made. Crowdsourcing is another thing that was talked about a lot. It's changing how films are getting funded and distributed. And it's a way to connect directly to your audience and give them the films that they are actually wanting to pay for and see. And quite frankly, we're actually doing that with a new project that has been kind of challenging to get filmed for a long time, but it's got a big audience behind it. All right, now let's jump into ethics. All right, this is a lot. This is a big video. All right, now let's jump into ethics. With more access to media than ever, audiences are also demanding ethical storytelling. People today are more media savvy than ever. They're insisting that, they don't feel manipulated. It's essential that they feel like the filmmaker is being transparent and they're being ethical in how they treat their cast in the film, which was pretty much new for me. I thought that was something we all did, but I guess it's new news. Trust isn't a trend. It's a foundation for long-term success, according to a lot of these experts. Some of this is kind of funny that they would actually say it, but it's like, yeah, I mean, if the audience doesn't trust us, how are we going to get our films made? Or are they actually going to watch it and care about what we have to say? All right, now let's talk about goal setting. Success in filmmaking starts with knowing your goals. If you don't define your return on investment, your ROI, before making your film, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. And I can totally feel that one. Whether it's financial success, social impact, or audience reach, having clear goals is critical. Knowing what success looks like from the beginning and having measurable impact is essential if you want to actually get through it and feel like you hit your mark. So now let's talk about work ethic. Robert Redford's son put it bluntly. If you're not absolutely sure you want to be a filmmaker, don't do it. This career demands everything from you, and success is never guaranteed. Even Sundance, when his father was setting it up, felt like it was it was a big failure. Redford had to stand on the street to convince people to come inside to actually watch films on the first few years. Filmmaking isn't for the faint at heart, but it's worth it for those who are truly committed. So that's what I learned at Sundance. The future, it's changing, and those who adapt will probably do really well. So what I'd like to know is, put a comment in the conversation. I'd love for you to, let's keep this conversation going. All right. And one last thing I want to mention. If you're an impact documentary filmmaker or a filmmaker, I really encourage you to go to Sundance and put it on your calendar at some point. It's just worth it. It's really eye-opening to experience it. And if you plan your trip in advance, you can learn a lot from many of these lounges and corporate events that are hosting filmmaker conversations. It's way more than just watching movies these days. I think that we're going to do a Doc Film School community group meetup next year to kind of get everybody together to learn together. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if any of this is helpful, tell a friend. All right. We'll see you in the next video.